Well, hello. I am so happy to be here today with Gina Haebich, who runs the amazing Joining Generations based in Melbourne, doing incredible intergenerational work. And it's so lovely to be able to catch up with you and to be able to hear about the various programs and initiatives that you're running, some of which we've had a chance to collaborate on through Good Flock, and some of which I know are just doing amazing things out there in the community. And I'll ask you all about them. But thank you so much, Sheena, for joining us. So maybe just to start, could you give us the story of joining generations and where it came from for you and why you started it?
So we're fairly new. We started, well, really the start of this year, but I have previously been working in running intergenerational programs for a few years. Um, so we're a small social enterprise. It's myself and a little group of volunteers, and we run a range of programs. A big inspiration for me was watching the ABC show Old People's Home for 4-year-olds back in COVID times. And then I had the opportunity a few years ago of setting up an intergen program with my local council between their kindergarten and their social program for older adults. And it was really that experience that made me feel like I want to go into this area. I've been working as a social worker in community services for about 20 years, and this was the first time that I felt just really so excited, and just seeing the connections between the children and the elders really made me feel like I want to do more of this, and I want to be working in community, creating more of these connections between generations. So that's really what led me to setting up Joining Generations. Yeah.
Was it like, I know it's probably hard to pinpoint and articulate, but I'm just really curious,
Mm.
like, what was it that you sort of saw in those interactions between young and older people that excited you so much and made you feel that this was something you wanted to dedicate yourself to in that way?
Yeah, I think I've worked with children and young people, and I've worked with older adults, and that's always been separate. And seeing them come together and seeing the level of connection and the level of joy that they brought each other was really very moving. And I think particularly for our older adults who are either living at home on their own, their partner may have passed away and they're completely on their own, very isolated. And then people living in residential aged care who may have family but they're not able to visit often. Just seeing that level of isolation and kind of withdrawing within themselves. Just seeing how seeing a group of 4-year-olds coming in, just people change. Like they would become very animated. I was just running a program last week in a Greek aged care home, and there's a couple of residents who are really very, very withdrawn. And when I try to talk to them before the session starts, they're not very responsive. They might just kind of nod at me. But then, as soon as the children come, they're laughing and talking and engaging, and it's just like they're a different person. And likewise with the children, I've seen some really shy, reserved children who are very nervous when they come in, and like it all feels a bit overwhelming. And they make that connection with one older person, one grand friend, and that person, they can really bring them out of their shell. And I've seen a retired teacher in her 80s, she connected with this young boy who was mainly nonverbal, but she just had this lovely way of engaging with him, reading stories with him and asking him questions, and in a way that he could kind of point to things, or she was able to communicate with him. And over a 10-week program, they became so close. And one session she was running late and he wouldn't start the activity until she was there. We were making musical instruments and he was just holding the materials. And I was like, oh, would you like to start? Like, are you okay? Do you want me to show you? And he was like, it was. And then as soon as I saw his grand friend come in, he raced up to her and put all the materials onto her lap, and they started doing it together.
So
And I just,
beautiful.
And the teachers, the early childhood teachers, talk about the quality of presence that the grandfriends bring, and that the children just a lot of the time don't get that from the adults in their lives. You know, obviously, so many have beautiful, loving relationships with parents and caregivers and extended family, but the quality of presence and attention that some of these older people bring is what is different and what is missing from a lot of children and young people's lives, and that patience. Um, yeah, so
Yeah.
all of those reasons and more.
Yeah. It's so beautiful. And I think it's so true, isn't it? There is just that different nature of time and interaction that can emerge in some of these programs. And I've definitely seen that too. And yeah, I know that even in myself, I've got two young kids, and sometimes it's like, yeah, you want to be, kind of really patiently sitting and working through something. You just don't have the time amongst everything else. And so I love that it's creating the space where that can happen in such a mutually beneficial way.
Mm,
And
mm,
I now realise that I haven't actually yet asked you or given you the
mm.
opportunity to explain the programs that you run, and would love to hear a bit
Yeah,
about what that actually looks like.
sure. Yes, so we run a few different streams of program. So one of them that I've kind of alluded to is a friendship program between kindergartens and aged care homes in Naarm, Melbourne. So we run a structured program where the children visit once a week, and it's the same group of children, the same group of elder residents, and the sessions are facilitated. So the aged care workers and the teachers will take turns leading the sessions with our support, and they'll do things like art and craft. We always start and end with songs, and we choose songs that both the children and the elder residents know. For some residents who have some memory loss, memory decline, they can still remember the songs and join in. And so that's really lovely. We play different games like throwing a beanbag at a target, lots of games with balloons, local care home. They play balloon tennis. They use fly swatters, and
Uh,
when they showed the children, and the children absolutely loved it, and they were going back to kinder saying, "Can we play the game with the fly swatters?" And the teacher's like, "We don't really have any fly swatters." But that's the one thing that they know they love doing with their grandfriends. And we always incorporate story time as well. So whether that's one or two residents taking turns to read to the whole group, or breaking into pairs or small groups and reading together like that. Um, yeah, so that's one stream of program. The other stream is intergenerational community dinners, which we've been partnering with Good Flock to run this year. And what they're about is bringing between 5 to 6 generations together around the table for a meal and conversation. And it's people who don't know each other. So we've been holding them at a local community centre. So it's often people who live nearby, or who've been attending some of the different programs that the centre offers. And it's about coming together in a really intentional way to have conversation with people that you wouldn't normally otherwise engage with, and learning about who they are as people beyond their age, or like moving through the stereotypes that I think a lot of us have unconsciously taken on from media and society messaging. So it's really about trying to break down some of those stereotypes and just find what we all have in common.
and so that's just, one meal, right? People who've
Mm.
never met each other sitting around the table sharing one meal. And I'm curious, in that short amount of time,
Mhm.
what have you seen transpire between those people, and in terms of the shifts that it creates for people walking away?
Yeah, I think I was surprised the first couple of dinners how deeply people went in terms of what they were sharing, and the level of connection and um, stories that people were sharing from their own lives. And so I should say that the concept is based on a US movement called Generations Over Dinner. And the whole mission is to try and spread these dinners around the world. And they're meant to be free and just bringing community together. So I saw a video that my mentor had posted about these dinners last year, and I've been thinking for some time I'd like to do this. So yeah, our organisation got together and thought, how can we do this? So Generations Over Dinner have scripts, kind of conversation themes. So themes around love, wisdom, work, the future, the environment, and there are all these prompt questions for sparking conversation. And I remember at the first dinner, one of the questions was around, can you share a stereotype or misconception that people have about your generation? And we went around the table. There were 10 of us at the table, and each person shared about that and how their own experience and the experiences of their peers differed so wildly from the stereotype about their generation. And I think as people were sharing, everyone around the table was starting to see, gosh, we're all being held up to these really inaccurate perceptions of our generation. And I think people started to really see, actually, we have so much more in common than society would have us believe.
Sorry to interrupt you. I was just curious to hear more about what were some of those things that came up, the stereotypes that people named.
Yeah, the first one that came up was someone from the baby boomer generation who said, I just feel really upset that everyone thinks that we're home owning, rich people that are, hoarding the wealth.
Hoarding.
She just said that's not my experience at all, and none of my peers are in that situation. And actually, a lot of people that I know are struggling financially, and it just really doesn't fit. She went on to talk about all the ways that her generation has contributed and made things better for future generations. And that led to a whole table sharing. Each person kind of took a turn to say, this is how my generation has contributed. So someone he was the eldest at the table in his mid-80s, so he's from what's called the builder generation. And he talked with pride about what it was like to build society and lay the groundwork after the world wars, and that he had a sense of pride in that. And then people in their 50s who belong to Generation X were talking about the gains that they'd made around workplace rights and women's rights and all sorts of civil liberties that they really saw their generation had a role in that. And then there was someone at the table in their mid-20s, Gen Y, in their mid-20s was saying, we get told that we're snowflakes and that we just don't care about the world and that we're always just on our phones. And they were saying, we feel like we've contributed a level of mental health literacy and openness around mental health, and also really contributing to understandings of gender diversity and sexual diversity and general diversity and inclusion. And then the person in their 80s was saying, yes, actually, I've learnt so much from you and your cohort of young people. It's really opened my eyes, and I'm really thankful for that. I grew up regionally, and my experience growing up is so different to now, and your generation has contributed so much richness and diversity to society. And so people started kind of just spontaneously thanking each other for what they contributed, and there was this real sense of this real cohesion, and there was something tying us all together. Everyone had made a contribution and had also benefited from others' contributions. So it's kind of this sense of like solidarity and just closeness, and it was amazing. It was a 2.5-hour dinner.
Yeah.
And someone at the end of the dinner said, I haven't felt that listened to and that seen in a very long time.
Yeah. Which is both so sad and so wonderful, isn't it? That we don't have these opportunities for people to feel that way so often, but it's incredible in a fairly simple setting, and with just a little bit of intentionality and some prompts, what can come out of that. And I don't know, as you were talking, I was just thinking, at a time where I feel like it's very easy to become quite despondent and despairing about the direction the world is heading in. Like that just feels like such an antidote of sort of hope to actually be reflecting on what are the ways in which, like, generation by generation, we've actually been making things better. And yeah, of course, some things have not been getting better, but I think when you start to think about the positive trajectories as well, then suddenly it starts, like it tops up the tank a little bit more, and you feel like actually you can start to like sort of face the future with a bit more optimism, and then I think optimism breeds more action than sort of fear and negativity. And yeah, it's a bigger conversation, I suppose. But
Mm.
I think, there's also really something in that piece around that cycle back from the younger generation to the
Mm.
older, and that sense of, like the learning that's continuing and the development that's continuing even for those older people around the table, which, again, is sort of counter to the narratives we're fed around older age being a time of decline and where you're not learning and there isn't this
Mm.
sort of expansion into new possibilities. I love that man's talking about the things that he's discovering and learning now.
Yes, absolutely. And I know that at least a couple of the younger guests were really inspired by him. He's really active and go to the gym a couple of times a week, and they thought that he was younger than he was based on how active a life he leads. And I think that's another really important kind of indirect message, that aging can look very different to the message that we're often fed,
Yes.
and that it can be one of growth and richness and connection.
Yes.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess that sort of feeds into, this sense of possibility and how else things could be. I'd love to hear, I guess for you at a big picture, what's your vision of the future of aging and intergenerational connection that sort of like drives you, and how would you articulate that?
Wow, that's a big question. Um, I think that ultimately it's about creating, I would like to see much more opportunity for people of all ages to just naturally be able to connect and develop relationships and help one another, provide support. I think programs like the ones that we're running and lots of other organisations are running are wonderful. But I'm keen to see what's beyond that, and how do we embed some of these structures into our communities so that it's easy, connection is easy, and it's not something that we have to design programs for, and need funding for, and all of those things. I think they're a stepping stone to get there, but my kind of bigger vision, which probably aligns with where you're coming from too, is that, yeah, we rebuild the way that we used to live in society, and that non-Western societies still live with those strong intergenerational connections, and yeah, where it's just built into our everyday life, into our workplaces and family lives and homes, that we're not living in little silos and little nuclear families. And we know that that breeds loneliness, and that there's a huge loneliness epidemic, not just in Australia but beyond. Um, I
Yeah.
think we have the solutions, but it's, yeah, a systemic approach I think is important, as well as at the grassroots,
Yeah.
creating programs and events and activities that enable that connection to happen.
Yes. It's almost like we're sort of in this time where we need the programs to remind people, you know, that this
Yeah.
connection matters and makes us feel better, and hopefully as a result of that might be more motivated to, look for those kind of relationships and those exchanges in everyday life. But I agree that, not all this should have to come through facilitated programs. Yeah, we have have the tools and the knowledge and thousands of years of experience of how to just be together in communities across ages and support each other. And
Yeah.
it's somewhere along the line that got a little bit broken.
Mm.
And now it's remembering, and just remembering to revalue that and make the space for it in a way that we've just stopped doing for some reason in, yeah, as you say, Western cultures, not all cultures.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, I think we have a lot to learn from First Nations communities here,
yes.
um, and overseas as well, who
Yeah. Yeah.
are still living in those ways and valuing those ways of being, and being in community and relationship with one another.
Yeah. Yeah. while we are still working towards that just being, normal how we do things, and there is still this really important role for programs and initiatives, I'm curious what's on your mind as you look to the future and with joining generations. Are there ideas that you're sitting on or bubbles of possibility kind of coming up that you could share?
Yeah, I mean, where do I start? I've always got some ideas for new initiatives and ways of expanding our programs. But I think so, in terms of this kind of next year, what we're looking at is launching our fee for service program in aged care homes. So it's called Giggle and Wiggle, and it will be bringing children from 0 to 5 years with their caregiver into the care home, and will facilitate structured sessions. So similar to the kindergarten sessions, there'll be lots of music, singing, games, and lots of opportunity for interaction between the children and the elder residents. So yeah, that's a piece that we're excited about. And profits from that go back into providing programs and events that are free or low cost for community members. So we're really keen to keep going with the dinners. We've got a couple coming up in the next few months. And then, do you want to talk about?
Yeah, I was going to say, for anyone who's listening, Good Flock has partnered in a very, light background supportive way for Gina on these dinners, but really Gina has been the one doing all of the thinking and planning and facilitation, and having seen how beautifully it's gone over just the first couple of attempts, it seemed like it would be amazing to share some of that learning that, Gina's been developing around how to do these dinners and facilitate these get-togethers. So we asked if there might be opportunity to share that online. So you've very graciously said yes. And do you want to tell us a little bit about what that will look like?
Yeah, so I guess it'll be an opportunity just to share our experiences of hosting the dinners and some of the learnings that we've had along the way, because it's been, a nice steep learning curve, which is great. And each time we hold a dinner, we kind of learn more and keep adapting things as we go. So yeah, it'll be just an opportunity to share what our experience has been like, and maybe give some tips about things that we've found worked well or have been helpful. Yeah, and just keen to have people come along who might be interested in or even curious about holding a dinner or attending a dinner, because we'd really love to see these spread in the community. And there's something that doesn't need a lot of heaps of planning or structure or heaps of funding. It can be as simple as inviting a group of neighbours and someone hosting and having a potluck dinner in their home. And this next dinner that we're hosting in October is going to be a potluck, so we're testing that out. But it doesn't have to be complicated, and we'd love other people to give it a go. And let's see how it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that's how those ripples kind of spread out. Hey, the more people who have the opportunity to get together and have these sorts of conversations, that impact and the shifts in perspective and attitude just sort of flow outwards. So yes, I think hopefully lots of people will kind of get on board and start experimenting with the dinners in their area. And I think it's brilliant that you've been able to get the ball rolling and share what you're learning so far to help others on their way, because often that's all we need, really, isn't it? It's just like a conversation and a bit of a nudge to just do that thing.
Yeah.
Sit there thinking about it, just give it a go.
And that's what's helped me and us so far is contacting other people that we know are doing similar work and just saying, can we have a chat? And people are so willing to share, and to share what they've learned and to pass things on. And so really happy to offer that too. And just hopefully we could create a little network of people that are hosting dinners potentially around the country and support each other with ideas. And
like that. If someone's listening and they're really inspired by what you're doing and they want to get involved or support in some way, what would your sort of message or invitation be at the moment?
Yeah, please get in touch with us. You can jump on our website and you can sign up to our newsletter. And we will soon be adding a volunteer form to our website. So if you are interested in volunteering in one of our programs, you can fill out an expression of interest and we'll get in touch with you. And we've got a few other things on the boil that we'll be posting about soon. So yeah, we're launching a story time, intergenerational story time at a local library in Seniors Month in October. So that's really exciting. We're partnering with the local U3A and care home as well to bring older adults into the library to engage in stories with the children and their parents. So excited about that. Yeah, so there's opportunities to be involved. Please get in touch. And if people just want to ask a question or have an idea they want to share, please, yeah, we'd love to hear from you.
Amazing. Well, thank you for all of the beautiful work you do. It's always so um, uplifting just knowing that there are people like you out there, you know, just quietly making this stuff happen, and I know bringing so much positivity and joy to so many young and older people's lives. So thank you for what you do, and thank you
Thanks,
for
Emma.
sharing it with us today.
And thanks for Good Flock support too, because it makes it all possible.
Thank you, Gina. Have a great day.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.